Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Fishel, and this is a very brief but special update on something called an Eyewall replacement cycle, which has played a major role in how Hurricane Milton, has behaved over the past 12 to 18 hours. The minimum pressure at one point was down to 897 millibars, which made it, I believe, the fifth strongest hurricane on record in the Atlantic Basin. And over the period of time since then, the pressure has risen over 30 millibars, and the winds have decreased. Now, the thing is, they were at 180 miles per hour, so a decrease even of 30 or 40 miles per hour still makes it an incredibly strong hurricane, but there's no question that weakening has occurred, and this has nothing to do with the weakening anticipated with the increased wind shear that is going to be coming up tomorrow. So just a very, very basic explanation here is that you start off with a very, very tight inner core. In other words, the eye, at one point, I think the diameter was like 8 nautical miles. So the winds are very intense. If you think about this, angular momentum is defined as the product of the radius times the velocity. And so the smaller the radius is, then the higher the velocity can be in order for angular momentum to be conserved. So you have this very, very tight inner core, and the winds just keep accelerating as they spiral in toward the center. Then what begins to happen is that you have the formation of an outer eye wall like this at a much, much greater distance from the center, and then the convection that's going on with that eye wall begins to rob the inner eye wall of its moisture source, and so the inner eye wall begins to collapse. And so as that happens, and you have a eye wall with a much greater diameter, then the winds weaken as a result of that, because they can't spiral into that tight inner core the way they could before. And so now you have a much bigger eye wall, if you will, and weaker winds, although I use the word weaker in quotes, and then the outer eye wall begins to contract, and as it does, the winds begin to increase again. And so after seeing the pressure drop to, or I'm sorry, actually rise to about 929, 930 millibars, the latest reconnaissance aircraft now has the pressure back down to 925, and I wouldn't be surprised if it continues to fall over the next 12 to 18 hours before the vertical wind shear increase tomorrow begins to weaken it again. And it's just going to be really, really interesting to see, even though this environment is going to become very hostile to the hurricane tomorrow. Once you have this amount of momentum, if you will, these kinds of wind speeds, then how quickly can that dissipate? And I think the National Hurricane Center is right on the money in terms of telling residents of the west coast of Florida not to anticipate the weakening becoming so significant that this isn't a big deal. It could still easily be a major hurricane at landfall, even though it would only be a shadow of what it was when it was a Cat 5 with 180 mile an hour winds. So that's the good news. It's not going to make landfall with that kind of intensity, but that doesn't mean that it's still not going to be major and that it can't still have some very, very destructive effects. So the next 24 to 30 hours are going to be really, really interesting to watch in terms of how Milton responds to this very, very hostile environment that will begin showing up tomorrow. All right, that's it for now. And by the way, the local forecast really hasn't changed. Still anticipate an increase in the amount of cirrus clouds tomorrow as a blow-off of Milton, if you will. And then we'll probably start off overcast on Thursday and then begin to clear as we head through the afternoon, and the rest of the 7-day period looks very, very nice. So no precipitation expected at all for the next 7 days, just a little bit of an increase in the cloud cover due to Milton, again beginning tomorrow and then beginning to move out Thursday afternoon. All right, folks, that's it for now. I am in New York, and I will try to update you later this evening, the latest on Milton, but the local forecast is pretty simple, so not any great need to go into explicit detail on that. It's about as basic as things get. All right, folks, y'all take care. We'll talk to you soon. See you later.